They don't come on with the Zoom. Good morning, everyone. Here I am, Carol Lourie, talking to lovely Katrina, and we are live. This happens often. We get into a conversation, and the next thing you know, StreamYard has started us. Welcome, everyone, from wherever you are. I'm in the Bay Area. It's hailing and pouring and freezing, and if you're having a snow blizzard, I hope you're warm and cozy at home. Katrina is a wonderful practitioner. She has a very interesting story, and I'm really honored to have you here. Welcome, Katrina.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
So tell everyone a little bit about your background. It's very unusual, from Pilates to
cancer.
Here we are.
Yeah, I would be happy to. So I got into the health and wellness world. I was a Pilates instructor. I actually got trained when I was back in college. So that was my early start, just looking at the body as a whole and how, dysfunction in my ankle was causing dysfunction in my wrist, and through that, my back. So, seeing how adjusting one aspect can have this triple ripple down effect, on the whole body was at an early age. And then I opened my studio. We've been doing teacher training for over 20 years. Really a post-rehab focus, not just, do your reps kind of thing. And then I had cancer. And the cancer came out of nowhere. We had already been doing some food as medicine work as a family, and my eyes had already started to be opened up to the power of what we eat. And with that, as I came through my journey on the other side, I needed to know what happened and how the body works, looking at things besides the muscles and bones and fascia, but the organs and hormones and everything. So I went back to school, became a nutritionist, went through training as a functional practitioner, and then with certifications in oncology. So it's been quite the journey, and I'm so excited to be able to see the whole picture and then help other people on the other side of it.
And Katrina's done my dear friend and colleagues, Dr. Nasha Winters, wonderful author, natural cancer practitioner. She's done her metabolic cancer is a metabolic disease program, which is how I approach cancer also. So the title of our time today is, what does the gut have to do with cancer? So let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. The gut is not something that most people are looking at or even thinking is connected to cancer. And most people are just kind of dismissing it as like, that's not even something to look at. And it's actually very, very foundational, right up there with, the blood sugar regulation, which the gut has a large part of. But the gut, starting from even just eating your food, the state you're in, being in a sympathetic go, which as cancer people tend to be in, that's going to inhibit your digestion. So, doing a couple deep breaths and being in that grateful state has a huge function into getting you in a good place just alone with the gut.
And then what are they, with your wonderful knowledge now with the cancer is a metabolic disease, what do you recommend women eat?
Oh, okay. You're jumping right in. So I'm going to back up and come back to that if you don't mind. Absolutely. So the first thing you want to be thinking about is digestion. And this is not something that people really think about unless there's problems. And they certainly don't connect that to cancer. But if you step back and think about it for a few minutes, you are spending a ton of money and time on having all the right food, which you guys are, digging into what does that mean? And of course, all the supplements. I mean, you can spend a small fortune in supplements and not get any of it if you don't have the digestion dialed in, which is super offensive to me because I know for many years I spent a ton of money getting the grass finished this and the organic that and all the non-GMOs and everything. And it's like, important. I wasn't digesting it. That's really important. And the two drivers of screwing up your stomach acid production, so that's the very first place you want to look at with digestion, are stress and dehydration.
Oh, interesting. Dehydration. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Here I am drinking my green tea. Very interesting.
Right. Well, those are things that are free. They're cheap and easy, right? And people just are like brush them off. But making sure that you're well hydrated, even putting some salt in your water to make sure it gets into the cells, especially, if you've got some adrenal issues, can be super helpful. Making sure that you really clear out the stress. And that can take some really heartfelt, okay, let's discuss with my family, where can I get rid of the stress and what is really driving my stress? What makes me anxious and, get that feeling so that I can calm down, enjoy my food, but digest it most importantly. So then a little further down the line, when you get that stomach acid at a nice low level, you got to have it between like 1 and 3, which is really low. So if people are on like PPIs or they're taking acid blockers or even just popping the Tums.
Tums, a lot of women. Okay, ladies, this is a anti-advertisement moment. When you see advertisements on television that you should be taking Tums for your calcium, never, ever, ever. No, listen to that ad. That has nothing to do with the reality of what your body needs. It has to do with the people who make Tums wanting to steal your money and make you sick. So that was just an aside.
No, I love it. That was perfect. That's exactly right, because that's going to make your stomach acid go more towards neutral, which means you're not digesting your food. And it's pretty comical that you brought up the Tums for the calcium, because if your stomach acid isn't low enough, you're not going to digest the calcium anyways.
And
so ridiculous. It's an oxymoron.
It has nothing to do with what your body needs to keep your bones healthy.
And calcium is not your friend with cancer. So when you want to get those minerals in, they have to have that low acidic pH. Mm-hmm. It's super key. And you hear a lot in cancer circles about alkalizing your body. Not with your stomach. You want that stomach super acid. That acid wash is going to not only help you digest and absorb your minerals and your food, but it's also going to kill any pathogens. Okay, so here's my joke. All right, 4 women go into a sushi bar. No, it's not really a joke, but if 3 of them eat the sushi and get really sick, one of them eats the same sushi and doesn't. What's the difference? It's the stomach acid.
One has stomach acid and the other 3 don't.
Yeah, we want to kill those pathogens. Hopefully you're not eating bad sushi, but we want to make sure that you have enough stomach acid to deal with it, because you hear about all the time about the lettuce recalls and stuff with the salmonella and the E. coli. And this is going to help you not be susceptible, because with cancer, we need our nutrients, but we also need to make sure that our immune system isn't constantly getting bombarded and hit and attacked. We need all hands on deck for the cancer.
Right. And I have to just say that most of those recalls are with horribly grown food, tortured chickens. I mean, it's not like farm to table lettuce or free range chickens. If you've seen how those eggs are made, how those chickens are treated that then lay the eggs, you would never, ever want to eat those eggs. It's just not humane.
It's pretty bad. Yeah, we actually raise our own chickens for that very reason, because we want to know what's going into their mouth, because that's what's going into us.
Exactly. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So once the food in the stomach gets down out of the stomach, it gets a nice alkaline wash. And that whole process is going to trigger the body to release the digestive enzymes, which a lot of cancer patients are taking a ton of. So this can help reduce the load of how many supplements you're taking if you get that HCl up. Plus, it's also going to release the bile. Now, bile isn't super sexy in most people's worlds, but it is in mine. And the bile is super important because, one, you need to make sure you have enough bile to digest your fats if you're eating a high-fat diet, which is key for cancer.
Which should be, right?
It should be, yes. And 2, the bile is kind of like the way the body is going to escort a lot of the toxins out. So when you're trying to do detoxification, which is usually a big issue with cancer, you want to make sure that bile is flowing, because we want things to get out. And by that, I mean through the feces and out the toilet. We don't want it in your body.
No.
And so the bile is really helpful. As you move down, if there's any leaky gut, the leaky gut comes from a lot of the antibiotics that we've been given over the years. I mean, who hasn't had rounds of antibiotics? Almost no one. Different chemicals like glyphosate that's poured on all our food, as well as just having food sensitivities and stuff. This is going to open up the tight junctions that should be tight and allow undigested particles of food to get right into the bloodstream. So this is not only going to cause the immune system to be like, whoa, this is not supposed to be here. I am attacking it and I'm going to create food sensitivities. But it's also going to possibly lead to autoimmune disease.
Right.
Which I'm sure your listeners are familiar with how much inflammation in the body that causes and how this all ties into, let's allow the immune system to do its job in an appropriate way. So creating more inflammation, more autoimmune is going the wrong way when we're talking about cancer. Talking about anything, nobody needs that, right? And then down in the large intestine, that's where your microbiome lives. And that's where you have, the good bacteria and the bad bacteria and all the possible pathogens that could be there. And we really want to make sure that this is appropriate for a lot of reasons. So if you have parasites and things, which is a lot more common than people think.
Really?
It is. It's a thing. And again, that's where we want the stomach acid so that, it's killed up there and just ends up being a little extra protein. But if it gets down there and gets out of control, it can really zap and drain your body of its healing energies and kind of distract it. You want all of your body's focus to be on the cancer. You don't want parasites, much less the fact that parasites are going to be stealing nutrients. When your bad bacteria are out of control, dysbiotic, it also can create an overgrowth of an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase.
Mm-hmm.
And this is huge with cancer and not talked about nearly as much. You can test this in stool testing, but when this happens, basically, your body packages up extra estrogens, sends it out through the bile to be released, and then right by the back door, the body is unpackaging it with this beta-glucuronidase and putting those estrogens back into circulation. This is a disaster hormonally for clients that are estrogen dominant, which is a huge thing, a huge driver of a lot of cancers. That was me with my breast cancer. I had my estrogen dominance out of control. And I'm really grateful that we got it under control very quickly. But again, the gut was part of it to make sure that things were in balance there. And then the last thing in the gut, I would say, is that it's really important to look at the fact that your good bacteria, when they're healthy and strong, they're actually making nutrients for you. I know, free supplements. So things like short chain fatty acids, a whole host of them, vitamin K, even some amino acids your body can make down in the gut, which more information is coming out literally every day on all the cool things that it does down there. So it's really a helpful thing that you want to have vibrant and strong and not compromised.
Okay, that was a really great review. And a lot of what Katrina and I both do is we test. Because, you can't open up the gut and say, hi, what's going on in there? You need to do some functional medicine testing. And the test that we both think is the industry standard is called the GI map. And that needs to be ordered through a practitioner who can order it for you and then have an appointment and evaluate what the results are, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to that test. It gives you a lot of the markers to see digestion. So things like the beta-glucuronidase and your secretory IgA, which is your immune system in your gut. You can see how things are going there, but it's also giving you the pathogens, so the parasites and worms, which we're hoping you don't have, but also higher up, the H. pylori that might be derailing your hydrochloric acid, that stomach acid.
It's amazing how many women have H. pylori. It's very common in the US, I think.
It is very common, and it's a huge, huge issue in terms of stomach acid production.
Yeah. So let's get into your beautiful work with nutrition and cancer with cancer as a metabolic disease, because I think women need to hear that perspective. And the more that we talk about it, the more it becomes second nature to them, because it's one of the first things I say is the sooner you can divorce yourself from the standard American diet, the healthier and happier you'll be.
I love that. Yeah, it's really hard because it's been so ingrained in us our whole life growing up. And then even now, it's still everywhere you look. And that's just like the autopilot for every event, every restaurant, everything is just the basic standard American diet. And there's nothing that could be further from health.
It's true. And it doesn't help when the oncologist says, and I hear this a lot, women are concerned and they go, well, what should I eat? And the oncologist will say, whatever you want, or maybe they'll get referred to a nutritionist within the hospital, and the person will say anything and everything in moderation, which is absolutely not the case. So no. Go ahead, Katrina, take it away.
Farther from the case. And I hear that all the time too. I knew what you were going to say because it's so common. It doesn't matter what you eat. Food doesn't have any effect. And I'm going to call a big BS on that. That is the driver. That is one of the drivers. So in terms of food, we have been lied to and told to eat a low fat diet, all my life. I remember having competitions with my little sister on who could eat less fat as we were teenagers. I'm like horrified to think about it.
Remember Tab? I grew up, people were drinking Tab.
It was a thing. Yeah. We used to drink Diet Dr. Pepper. That was our choice.
Yeah, I love Dr. Pepper when I was little.
Yeah, I mean, it's just trash. It's terrible. And the thing is that we know now that metabolically, we need to have a ketogenic diet if we have a fighting chance dealing with cancer. So if you think about like a PET scan, I mean, standard of care knows this because the PET scan works. They give you radioactive sugar, and then they look on the scan to see where the radioactive sugar went. And metabolically, the cancer has switched to needing, they're producing energy anaerobically. So it needs huge amounts of blood sugar. And so it just sucks it all up, and it actually creates new streams by, creating new blood vessels of getting more sugar. And so at the same time, while they're giving you the chemotherapy, they're telling you it doesn't matter what you eat. Your blood sugar can be sky high. No, that's a lie. That is going to feed your cancer, and it's going to feed the dysfunction that created the cancer. So just like with the diabetic, I'm going to be, I'm talking all day long to my clients about, let's get the carbs out, keep the low carb veggies. That's the kind of carbs you need. That is going to be the conduit to, carrying the fat, because no one wants to eat a spoonful of mayonnaise, right? You want to put it on something. And so, a fair, moderate size of protein, clean, healthy forms. And then the majority of your diet is fat.
And vegetables.
Yeah. The vegetables are going to be the volume. The fat kind of just melds into them. But in terms of like grams and calories and things like that, the majority is going to be the fat because the calories aren't in the vegetables. But
I don't really count calories when I talk to women like at this point. I mean, that's, old fashioned.
Exactly.
What forms of fat? Let's talk about what forms of fat, because I know that, margarine is not one of them. God forbid.
Hell no.
Mayonnaise. If you're not going to make your own, it has to be, there's nothing the matter with making your own mayonnaise. It's actually very easy. But if you're not going to make it yourself, then it needs to be, it's not Hellmann's, everyone. Or what's the one that I grew up with that isn't even mayonnaise, but it's, organic olive oil mayonnaise, but I make my own. But
absolutely. Making your own mayonnaise is super easy. Personally, I don't like the olive oil anywhere near my mayonnaise because it has such a strong flavor.
Yeah, it depends which olive oil you make it with. That's the secret.
I make mine with avocado oil.
Avocado oil is delicious.
Yeah, my kids literally lick the bowl out, which again, my young self that was so horrified by mayonnaise is just like laughing, watching my kids. They're like, oh, this is so good. I'm like, yeah, it is. So you want to have the healthy fats, a nice array of saturated, unsaturated, and polyunsaturated. So
Can you give specifics? Let's give specifics because a lot of women don't know what those words mean. Go ahead.
The saturated ones are the ones that are going to be stable for cooking. These are solid at room temperature. So things like butter, ghee, coconut oil, lard, tallow. Again, you want clean sources from healthy animals like Dr. Carol was talking about before. Then the unsaturated, the monounsaturated, those are going to be like, they're liquid, but if you put them in the fridge, they get solid. And so those are going to be things like your avocado oil, your olive oil. And then the polyunsaturated, these you never, ever want to heat. These are like already rancid usually, and these are the ones you want to really be careful with. So this includes our super important omega-3s and omega-6s and 9s and such, but you want to make sure that you get them in a non-rancid form. So they need to have not been exposed to air, light, and heat. So if you're getting them, you want to have them in a dark amber bottle that's been refrigerated and it's been cold pressed. This is important. And never, ever heat with these or cook with these rather. So you're going to use those for your salad dressings. If they're
what's polyunsaturated?
Examples, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is going to include things like flaxseed oil, a lot of your seed and nut oils. This is also going to include your vegetable oils, which are the ones we want to avoid. And this is kind of why you want to avoid it, because they are rancid. Now, people argue with me all the time. My clients are like, they're not rancid. I can smell them. They're not bad. It's because they bleach them and deodorize them and degum them and all these awful chemical processes that are just hiding the fact that they are completely rancid, not food products.
So we're talking about safflower, sunflower, and canola oil?
Yes. Those are the ones that, again, there's nothing wrong with sunflower oil. I can't find it when it's been processed properly. And so if you can find it, that's a separate issue. That's why I want to give you the information about it. But, you see the big clear jugs of these vegetable oils. They're in the light. They've been processed. They've been heated. That's like pouring gasoline on the fire of cancer.
It's pouring gasoline on your inflammation, which is then cancer goes, oh, hi, great inflammation. Let's just get going here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And when I'm monitoring people's cancer, I'm looking at inflammation markers.
Me too, always.
See that connection of like, this is going to fuel the fire. And this is the part that I want everyone to know. When you go to a restaurant, they all use these oils. Now, this is from a business perspective. You just have to understand how much cheaper these oils are.
I was just about to say they're so inexpensive, they don't have a choice, quote unquote. So, which is why I always say, don't go out so often. Choose where you go. Go to a farm to table place that's a little bit, quote, more expensive. And know that you're not eating these horrible foods. You think you're giving yourself a treat, but you're actually giving yourself inflammation foundation 101. If you go to a normal restaurant, you have to go to a farm to table organic restaurant, and you can really even call ahead and say, I'm recovering from cancer. Can you please tell me what kind of oils you're using? Because I can't eat ABC. I mean, that's how specific I want this restaurant to be.
Yeah, honestly. And again, you might in San Francisco have better access, but I have found so many of the healthy places, they're using crap oils and they're using like agave and stuff, and it's trash. And so here's what I tell my clients. I don't even trust them when they're saying it's olive oil, because most of the olive oils,
I don't know what it is. Yeah.
No. So I tell my clients to bring their own salad dressing.
Yeah.
If you're being lazy, get a bottle of like Primal Kitchen. I have to tell you a funny story though. So I was talking to my mom about this, and she doesn't have cancer, but she has loads of arthritis and different things where the inflammation. She's like, you're just, out to lunch. This is too hard. I can't bring my dressing. It doesn't fit in my purse. So we're out at this, at like I think it was at Nordstrom Rack, and I was looking for a suitcase. She's like, oh, look, this purse I could use for my salad dressings. And I'm like, this lady was like 2 feet next to us, and she just lost it. She just starts laughing hysterically. And we were just hysterical laughing, like, the salad dressing purse. So, do what you need to do, but, make it so that you have your salad dressings, because as we just said, that should be the majority of your calories. And anywhere you go, you can get a salad with some meat on it. Just bring your salad dressing. Don't eat theirs.
Yeah, bring a little jar of olive oil with some real olive oil with a lemon, and you cut the lemon in half and squeeze it over the salad, and you're fine. I mean, Let's
Yeah.
keep it simple.
You can keep it simple. I like variety, and we'll make our own salad dressings. That's my favorite thing. It's so easy once you get started. And there's so many brilliant flavors that you can
I
bring out
know.
that make it so
A little
fun.
bit of brown rice vinegar and a dot of sesame oil, and then you've got and a little bit of tamari, gluten-free. You've got a little Asian thing over there, and if you want to make it Italian, you can change it, and then you can add a little bit of red curry paste to make it Thai. I mean, a little bit of simple. Yes, we need to.
Mhm.
I have a lot of different recipes for salad dressings
Oh, I
in
bet
my
you do.
cooking book.
Yeah.
Yeah, cookbook. Yeah.
It's
So, go
important
ahead. I'm
because
sorry.
you want to keep the fat coming in, and you keep it, fresh. You're going to get bored if you have the same thing, even if it's one of these fabulous ones. If you eat the same one every day, you're going to get just burn out and tired of it. So yeah, that's a great tip. And I do make my own mayonnaise, and you can do fun things like with that too, and add some crushed garlic to make an aioli. You could add some sriracha or hot sauce and make it just a completely different flavor, which is super fun.
Yeah.
Things and things. Yeah.
So we're getting into cooking recipes here.
I know. I'm hungry,
They
apparently.
go hand in hand. So now I know what women are thinking. If I eat all this fat, I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to get fat if I eat all this fat. Now, here's the thing. You can't do this form of diet half. I don't want to say the other word, half rear-ended. Because if you do, and then you eat this way, and then a woman said to me, well, I went out for dinner and I had lasagna and I only had 2 little pieces of the Italian bread, and I'm going, okay. Now and I looked at her and she said, well, it was better than I would have done. And I said, okay, that's great, but it wasn't what your body needed. How I would have handled this is I would have gotten a piece of grilled fish and asked them to put their tomato sauce on the side. And I would have had that with a salad with my olive oil and lemon juice. And I would have been, super satisfied and not feel like I just gave my body carbs, which are feeding cancer. So let's talk about how it's possible to stay on this plan when the world is thinking that you're crazy and doesn't really support it.
Yeah. The world does not support it. There's more out there now in terms of the grocery stores and different options at restaurants and things, but it's still really hard.
That's where you live. Yeah.
And when you're in a social environment, I don't know about you, but a lot of times I'll get the poor me. I want to eat this. I want to have that cake or whatever. And so for me, making the good choices, a lot of times I recommend my clients look at the menu ahead of time so they can choose when they're at home, not in the emotional moment.
Right.
That helps for some people. But here's my hot tip. I want, to have the dessert or the good thing or whatever it is, and participate in it with people. So I bring mine with me. I always have in my purse some kind of keto chocolate or something special, so that when I'm tempted in the moment and I'm like, I want the lasagna, I might be able to talk to myself and be like, no, I'm going to get the fish and the salad, but I got chocolate afterwards, or when everybody around me is ordering the creme brulee, I'm like, it's okay. I got my own thing. I'm good.
Yeah.
And that way I don't feel deprived, and it's more sustainable. So everybody's got to find their way of how they can make good choices, because it's a little different for all of us.
It's true.
Because what you said is super key. If you can't sustain it, if you can't, keep it going on long term, it's not going to work. It's not about restriction and do without. It's about,
not like you're dieting. It's a new way of life, and it's something that you've embraced for your long-term health and life. Now, the other thing I want to say is never go to a restaurant hungry.
No, exactly. Yeah, it sounds good to say that, I'm just going to fast. It doesn't work.
And number 2, if you want lasagna, the next day you can come home and take your zucchini and slice it, and even your eggplant and slice it, and make your own organic tomato sauce, or get a jar of organic tomato sauce and put a whole bunch of herbs in there and make yourself, delicious vegetarian zucchini without carbohydrates and not feel like it's yum. I do that all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I put my meat in there too, so
Yes,
you don't even have to be vegetarian. It's just not the noodles with,
right.
minus carbs and stuff. Yeah,
And
that's one of our favorites.
yeah, and Parmesan Reggiano is actually a very healthy cheese to eat. It has a lot of prebiotics. It's a PDL1 inhibitor. So just grate a whole bunch of that. You have to buy the expensive original kind, not the kind in the jar that's, you have to, Chef
Yeah,
Boyardee
cheese
Parmesan.
is on the shelf. It's not real cheese.
No, it's not. And it's on, yeah, you have to get the chunk and you have to stand there and grate it. And you will not feel, I like what Katrina said, saute up your farm to table beef in there. It's going to be delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Put some herbs in there. Yum. I'm going to make that this weekend. So, how can women find you, Katrina? We also put your link, I think, in the post, but how can women find you? What's your website, honey?
Yeah, nutritionalpilates.com. That is the name of my book that's coming out in like about a week. So
Do you have your book there to show?
I don't have a hard copy right here with me, but we're going to have it. That's the site that's got all the different resources, both to work with me, work with our group. It's got more recipes and fun stuff like we've been talking about, and free resources for the book and everything. So
that's congratulations on the book. Really, congratulations. I'm in the process of writing mine. It's taking a while. You got to steal your hours from everything that you do to find moments, but that's wonderful. Congratulations. And when it comes out, send me the information. I'll support you with my community because they need to know. And I just have to say,
you know what? I'm going to go a step further than that. If they want to go ahead on nutritionalpilates.com, it's going to have a pop-up that you can put your information in, and I will send them a hard copy to their house. So
that's beautiful, ladies. That's beautiful. I do Pilates. I love Pilates. I think Pilates is one of the best ways that we can take care of our muscles, our tendons, our bones without, violent exercise.
Right.
So anyone who is having a problem finding a way to strengthen and support your bone health, your tendons, your muscles, Google Pilates with your zip code and do a couple sessions and see how you feel about it, because it's really an amazing way to stay strong, right?
It's amazing. And you get that bone density building. Everything can be customized. So we have a lot of clients with chronic conditions, arthritis and things, and it's so easy on the joints, and it brings things back into balance and helps reduce that inflammation, which is what I go into in the book, because the name of the game is reduce the inflammation, right?
Great. So we have a note here. Thank you, the Facebook user. And I'm reading it. It seems unrealistic and also unnecessary to completely eliminate bad carbs, i.e. the pasta and bread at Italian restaurant, the way Carol seems to be suggesting. Italians, whose Mediterranean diet is the gold standard, certainly enjoy the lasagna and bread. The Mediterranean diet does show the lowest amount of cancer. I have to acknowledge that. I was told that bread with olive oil, for example, neutralizes and negates some of the carb's negative impact. Thoughts on that, Katrina? I have my thoughts, but
I have lots of thoughts. So here's the thing. It's very bio-individual. When you're looking at research, you're looking at big groups, averages and such. If you have something like cancer, we're not just looking at what is healthy. We're looking at what do you need to do to turn the Titanic around. Correct. We're not messing around. This is
keep it from sinking, to close that hole.
This is huge, and it's not taken lightly. If you want to work on addressing the why the cancer got there in the first place, you have to look open-mindedly at everything. This was the hardest thing for me when I was going through cancer. It's like, I thought I knew a whole bunch, and I'm like, okay, we're throwing it all out. We're starting over. Let's look at both sides of the argument and see what is real truth and what's going to work for me. So when you see the testing, that's what you want to look at. Look at your testing. You want to look at markers like hemoglobin A1C, your insulin, your IGF-1. And this is really important to have your finger on, because I'll tell you the secret. It doesn't feel bad to have high blood sugar. It feels pretty damn good. you have tons of energy. Your body's like, woohoo, we're doing well. It's when you're low blood sugar that you get the symptoms. And never before in the history of the world have we had a problem with too high a blood sugar, besides the last 200 years when we introduced this ridiculous amount of refined carbohydrates. If you look back 300-400 years, they didn't eat this. They talk about your grandma's diet and Mediterranean diet and everything. That's not what they ate. They didn't have all this stuff. They didn't have all this processed white flour to make pastas and breads and things. That was not our historical diet for thousands of years. And so there's two things here. One, you need to look at like what is actually healthy for you specifically. And that's going to be different for everybody. Not everyone needs to actually be in ketosis at all times. But if you want to heal, you do. And one thing that helped me, I don't know where you're at, but it really helped me to understand that babies are born in a state of ketosis, that as long as they're drinking breast milk exclusively, they're in ketosis. And I'm like, that normalized it for me of like, this isn't some weird freaky thing. We should be in and out of ketosis naturally all the time. We should naturally have a fasting period in our day. We should burn some carbs and then switch to fat and then maybe have another meal eventually later on. And the way our society has structured our meals and how we eat, people are eating grazing all day long, and they have this constant insulin surge, which insulin is incredibly hard on the body. Ask any diabetic.
Cancer loves insulin. So let me just thank you for that. Yeah. So I want to say to the Facebook user that the food that you're getting in a normal Italian diet, as far as the lasagna and the bread, are filled with leptin and inflammatory molecules. And it's the Italian Mediterranean diet in Italy. Actually, this happens with a lot of people. They cannot tolerate gluten in America, and then they go there and they can eat gluten. And it's because the quality of their wheat and their grains is much different than what we have here. So filled with glyphosate.
Yeah, the glyphosate is not on their food, which is a huge disruptor of our gut and contributor to all this sorts of disease.
So I actually stand by how I would eat in a normal Italian restaurant, because the white bread and the regular pasta, it's not healthy, it's inflammatory. Now you want to go to Italy, you want to make, you want to start making pasta with teff flour. You want to experiment with bread teff is a very high in protein grain. It is gluten-free. You want to start figuring out how to make that for yourself, and also go in and out of ketosis. That's a different conversation. But for those of you who are in the middle of cancer treatment or still just out of it, I think that eating out in an Italian restaurant and having lasagna and pasta is not in your best health interests. So,
I would like to add to this. I think that there's a good chance the person that asked this question is maybe struggling with some of the, like, they want carbs. And there's two things that I like to mention to my clients. One, try it. Get into ketosis, actual ketosis, where you're measuring like with a Keto Mojo and you're dropping ketones and you're between 1 and 2. You will feel so stinking good. You will not want to go back. Second thing is that, a lot of times there's yeasts and stuff in the gut that are overgrowth, which I didn't mention, but that's a huge driver. And so the like, I have to have carbs, I will die without carbs feeling might not be you. It can be driven by your gut. And that's a really common thing. That was me. I had huge levels of mold, which were driving my cancer. And it was my gut stuff. I couldn't imagine life without carbs. I thought these people were insane that were talking about it. But once I did it, took care of my gut, went keto, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel better than I've ever felt my whole life. Where has this been? Why has no one told me this? They've been telling me the opposite. And I felt like crap my whole life. Like, if you give it a full chance and really do it hardcore and get in ketosis, do the gut work, it might be a different story. And usually the defensiveness comes from those things.
Yeah, and thank you for following up. The woman who commented said she's working with an integrative doctor who is looking at all of her markers. I think that's wonderful. And talked about intermittent fasting. That's great. I'm not into the olive oil with the bread. I think that's not the right approach, but everybody has their own opinion about that. But it sounds like you're doing great, especially with monitoring your markers,
Yeah.
which is
With
unfortunately not done enough. And
no.
so in a half hour, I'm teaching my 4th week of my Empowered Against Recurrence live group coaching, and we're talking all about testing. And I have lots of testing information I'm going to be sharing with the women, especially there's this new text called the Breast Cancer Index, which should be standard of care, because if you've decided to do tamoxifen aromatase inhibitors, you want the actual messages from your body about how long you need to be on it. And this is not standard of care. So the doctor is just saying, well, stay on it for another 5 years. And, meanwhile, your bones are deteriorating. So we have a lot to discuss. Yeah.
Yeah, it deteriorates your brain health too, which is a huge issue.
Horrible oxidative stress, the whole thing. So when you're on, when you've done standard of care and then you're doing standard of post-active treatment care, you really, to stay healthy and recover, you really need to be divorced from the standard American diet. And the more you can divorce yourself and stick to that inside of yourself, like when I go over to a person's house, I will call up and say, hi, you want to tell me what you're making for dinner? And if it's pasta, I have no problem bringing my own food.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe they'll have a salad, which I can eat, but I'll bring my own plate and I'll just either heat it up in the oven or the microwave or eat it at room temperature. They're eating pasta. I do not make a big deal about it. And the people that I'm going to dinner with, they don't care either. So, yeah, it's really not that hard to modify your life so that you're not feeding your cancer. I think that is something that we need to discuss more. So, Katrina, thank you so much for your lovely gift and being here and taking time. And I love that everybody has made comments. Rebecca, thank you for making a comment also. And this has been a really great conversation. It means that we're touching a nerve. Women need to hear more about this because there's no support in our society from the messaging we get from standard American television for eating this way. So we have to create our own bubble and our own level of health, right, Katrina?
Yeah, you do. I mean, when you talk about the bread with the olive oil, I would just say test it. I've never heard that would be like the olive oil mitigates it. I don't know where that's coming from, but don't believe me. Don't believe Carol. Don't believe this other doctor. Test it. You can get a blood sugar monitor, check yourself beforehand, eat it, see what it does. And this is great because you can do these carb testing, different foods will trigger different people. And quite frankly, different situations. You have a big knockout fight with your husband, your blood sugar is going up.
Yeah.
Of the adrenal hormones. And this is an issue too that you want to look at and, take a big picture of what can possibly be spiking that blood sugar, because that's going to be what's driving the cancer. It's going to be different for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Same food might trigger someone else that doesn't have any effect on me, and vice versa.
Beautiful, beautiful way to end. Thank you so much, Katrina. Ladies, it's Lourie signing off for now. Katrina, thank you for being here. Congratulations on your book. Everyone take advantage of her generosity. Go to her website and she'll send you a copy. That's a beautiful gift. Thank you so much, Katrina.
You're welcome.
Bye for now.